All right, good morning. It's Monday, April 1st, and this is a Tufton Borough Board of Selectmen meeting. A continuation after some non-public sessions. Let's begin with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, first I want to mention that we're running short-staffed this morning because Selectman Albee is ill. So it'll just be...
Get well soon.
Yeah, that's right. Do we have any public input? All right.
Oh, I have a question.
Well, I guess we do have some public input. All right. Yes, Alyssa.
I wrote up the latest medical and personal care product collection information from Sarasota. And this is a pilot program, it's the second year, and they're doing the medications in the winter. And it still yielded quite a bit of stuff. So I was just wondering, now Wolfboro has 24/7, because they have a 24/7 police department, so they can have their medical
Dropbox,
collection
right.
there, and presumably Tufton Borough people can use
My
that.
understanding is that the collection boxes are for anybody that wants to bring stuff. It's not restricted to people that live in that
Right,
community.
Tufton Borough can do it, it's
Right.
anywhere. But is Tufton Borough, might Tufton Borough have some sort of a collection box in the lobby or here or something at some point, or what are your thoughts on that?
We have looked at having, a collection box in the past. There are some issues with the physical arrangement that we have today, as well as the fact that we don't have a 24-hour man police department, both of which make having a collection box more difficult.
You don't have the security,
That's correct.
because you have glass. I mean, people can,
I'm not
yeah.
really conversant in all of the issues relative to that, but because of our situation, it would be much more difficult to have a 24/7.
Well, not 24/7, but even if there was one, does the police station take medicines?
No.
No, they don't.
The alternative is that the police chief and Clay Gallagher have worked together on having collections 1 or 2 Saturdays a
It's
year.
one or two.
Right.
Well, they have the
Right.
DEA take back.
Yes.
Right.
The one
Exactly.
coming up.
Now,
Exactly. Now, because Moulton Borough and Wolfboro both have drop boxes that are available to anybody,
You're hoping people will go.
it gives
yeah.
people
Yeah.
a place to take anything, anytime.
Yeah.
They don't have to wait for the
Moulton
twice-a-year
Borough's
collections.
24/7 also?
My understanding is that that it's off the lobby and the lobby is open all the time. So,
It is a needed program, and our police chief is, if there was a way of making it happen, he would, because, every pill you get
Yep,
off the
Yeah,
street.
they get a lot.
Yes.
yep.
Pharmaceuticals,
Yes.
yeah, they get a lot.
Yep.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yep,
Well, it's also just good public relations. It's a chance for you, the police officer or police department, to meet a citizen non-adversarially.
Would the new facility make provisions for something like that?
It's something I have to bring up
yeah, I
Yeah.
think
in my
that's,
notes.
I think that's a good question, certainly something that
Maybe there's some
we would-
other sort of design, yeah.
that we, would be looking at as well.
Okay,
All right,
Good question.
yeah,
I won't keep you anymore from the business at hand.
all right.
Okay.
Like her fingers fly.
Let's move on to review and approval of minutes. Okay, somewhere here I have minutes from, first is meeting minutes from Monday, March 18th.
Could I go to page 1? Next to last paragraph, the paragraph that says Mr. Carroll responded to Selectman Wood. Continue on that
No,
sentence.
we're looking at March 18th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I have nothing. I move we accept the minutes, sorry.
And I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yep. Now we have two non-publics on the 18th. And let's see, what do we do with the, there we go. Yeah.
Do you need my copies?
No.
Is this the
So-
8:30 a.m.?
8:30 a.m. on,
I have no changes.
okay.
I'll move we accept.
All right, and I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Then we have 8:52 a.m. On March 18th. You got that one?
Yes,
Okay,
I have no changes.
all right. Move approval.
Aye. Mr. Chairman, would you, is it appropriate to unseal these minutes? Or should we wait until Chip is here?
Yeah, I think let's wait until.
Okay.
All right, so are you gonna move approval on these?
Yes.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we have Friday, March 22nd.
Now I can
That's the
speak.
one that you had a,
Next to last paragraph, page 1, says Mr. Carroll, and the end of the sentence is, has no experience with crushed glass. And would you add AKA PGA?
all right, let's see.
Right here. Are you all set with that, Karen?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's the technical name, no.
yeah,
Processed
PGA.
glass aggregate.
yeah,
Other than that, I'm all set.
all right. So is that a motion?
So moved.
And I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Then we have also two non-publics from that day. The first one is 8:31.
I have no changes.
Okay. So is that a motion?
Yes.
All right, and I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
And we'll wait for Chip to unseal this?
Yep. And then the 10:48 a.m. non-public.
I have no changes.
All right, so is that a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Dennis? Dennis?
Oh, thanks, Jeff.
Dennis? You're up.
Yeah.
Should get a picture.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. All right, come on down, Dennis.
Sure, absolutely.
Hey, young fella, I recognize you.
Nice to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. I'd like to introduce Dennis Zumbo as our new Parks and Rec Director. And I think
The press. wants
the
to
press
take a
wants
picture.
a picture. Maybe,
All right.
maybe standing by the flag or something.
This is one of your jobs to be.
Wow.
Yeah,
Still
that's right.
listen.
We wanna
TV and
stand on either side.
newspaper on the same day,
You
huh?
want to stand on either side of it?
Well, would you want?
Well, maybe someone could be shaking, or you could be shaking.
I'll get between these guys. Get them.
Do you want me to put the flag over there?
I can wear a tie though.
No?
Huh? You don't. All right.
Are you guys taller than me?
No. Okay.
I was a guy.
Congratulations. And welcome.
They did
Thank
it
you.
once. All right,
Thanks. I
painless.
got the new Coke. I haven't tried it yet though.
Yeah, the orange vanilla?
Yeah.
Oh, it's dynamite.
It tastes
Yeah.
like a creamsicle.
That's-
Yeah, it does. It's,
You have that, Tom?
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's dynamite. It really is.
Oh, welcome aboard.
So welcome.
Thank you very much.
And I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. You can
Sure.
tell us a little bit about your
Absolutely,
background and some
yeah.
of the things you're going to be working on.
Yeah, first off, I think I need to thank the selectmen for this opportunity. We moved up here, been here about, well, going on 2 months. My wife works in Dover, my grandkids are in North Conway, so it's kind of a good middle point, Wolfboro. And saw the ad, perfect, part-time Parks and Rec director, so. First thing I gotta do is I've gotta resign my position here today. I'm sorry to say that.
Okay.
Oh, I thought I was joking.
What's the date today?
Oh.
Yeah. All right, you got me.
You are my type of guy, because in my family, April Fool's is our official holiday. And I was thinking to
Cooperating for
myself,
a picture?
I was thinking to myself,
That was
But
good, Dennis.
I'm excited.
this is a marriage made in heaven, my friend.
This is day one. I've actually been working, quite a bit the last week or so on different things. First thing, of course, is our Easter egg hunt on the 20th. Just checked the field up at the school, and we need rain and warm weather to get rid of that ice. But I'm waiting for a call back from the Easter Bunny. We're trying to get him there this year for both pitches, and we'll bring him in. But that's going to be my first project. I'm meeting tomorrow with that. So I'm excited about some of the programs you guys have done, looking to improve on them and looking to add some new ones. So
You're gonna find Gina's a tremendous resource.
Gina is
And
just,
she has a breath of fresh air that,
my God, the work she does behind the scenes is incredible. And she really should be credited for doing quite a bit. I mean, and just meeting with her a few times, I'm meeting again with her tomorrow. She's a great resource, so I look forward to having her close by,
Good.
So, but again, I thank you guys for the opportunity. I've been in Boys and Girls Clubs all my life. I ran an Elks Club for 7 years. I've coached high school and college basketball. Of course, this is my Christmas with the NCAAs.
oh yes.
Like I say, I've been to the last 2. I'm not going this week to Minnesota because I start this job.
Yeah.
But I've been glued to the TV, and I think it's good. Some of the teams you haven't seen for a while are in there. Virginia hasn't won since 1982, I think. And Auburn's never been. Texas Tech has never been.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I didn't get in any type of betting pool. But this year, if Kentucky won, I would have had all 4. I got 3. 3 out of the 4. I picked Texas Tech. I love Michigan State. I love the coach.
Yes.
And of course, Virginia's the number 1 seed. But I think you got something very special in this town. Just being around a short time, and Wolfboro being similar, probably double the size. But just seeing the things you've done, driving around town. I've been down the beach. I watched the sunset the other night with my wife there and my dog, but there's no dogs allowed, so he really wasn't there. But I just read that sign. But again, I appreciate the opportunity. I look forward to working with a lot of people.
And there are some people you're looking for at this point, right?
Well, we are, yes. I'm going to be speaking at the Newcomers Club. I joined that. There were about 100 people at the breakfast, so it was good. So I'm going to talk to them
But we
this Thursday, mainly about the Lake Coast program.
Yep.
Where we're going to man 2 different areas and looking for some volunteers. And I really can't see why someone retired couldn't give a couple hours a week, that type of thing. And then we're in desperate need, which a lot of people are, looking for lifeguards. So we're on that. I've been in touch with the school, trying to personally call juniors and seniors from Tuftonville to offer them a job.
Yep.
Tell them we could train them. But that's something that's very important, I think, right now, is to not only get the swim lessons in gear, but to man that place with lifeguards too. So,
Good.
yeah, but thank
Okay.
you again.
Thank you, Dennis.
All right, thank you for the board. I gotta get back to work.
Yeah, that's right.
Work is a four-letter word.
Yeah, yeah.
Welcome aboard, sir.
Yeah,
That was
thanks.
a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
Glad you're
I'm
staying.
Yeah.
Sure, thanks.
Well, he started off on the right foot, quitting.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, yeah,
He looks so serious.
yeah,
Wow.
that's
The
right.
expression on your face.
Yeah, all right. So is Rod available, I wonder? You want to see
Take
if,
a peek. Excuse me.
Two guys are out there.
Where did he say he comes from? Is he moving to
he
Buffalo?
lives in Wolfboro.
Oh, he does.
Yeah, they moved up here from Westboro, Mass.
Okay, he's been around for a little while.
A few months. Yeah, they just moved into the area.
He's probably one of the few actually newcomers.
Yes, yes, that's right. That's right.
So, do we have some correspondence in our file on Rod's paperwork? I thought I remembered something.
That's a good question, either in here or in,
Hi, gentlemen.
Hi.
Lloyd Wood, Selectmen. Is that high octane or no lead?
Hi.
I don't know.
Hi,
How are
Rod.
you?
come on up to the table and we're done.
Welcome to downtown Tuckahoe.
Adam's the appraiser that's assigned to Tuckahoe. I'm the supervisor for this area. So
Great. So we're here for pre-certification for evaluation. Did we have some paperwork on that, Karen, in here?
I don't do it.
No, we don't have anything yet.
Oh,
Okay.
no, okay, all
Your
right.
stuff
We
today.
all have
All right.
stuff to
Think
do.
so.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
April Fools.
Yeah.
Just wanted to
Could be
make
that
sure
day
that
today.
we weren't,
How far did you guys have to travel?
About an hour and a half,
yeah,
but beautiful country. so-
I'm about a little under an hour, Sanderson. So
yeah.
he's in Manchester.
I was there this weekend for I'm a hockey ref, so
Oh, okay.
they had at the old Verizon Arena.
That's right.
National Championship. Fun time.
Yep.
Oh, question. They're not actually scheduled for certification until next year. Just doing an update this year, because it's the 5-year cycle this
Oh,
year.
is that right?
Yes.
Ah, okay, I did not realize that.
Yeah.
Then we don't really need to go over the AR then,
Right, because you'll do that next year.
right? Okay.
Well, the floor is yours, gentlemen, so
Yeah.
I
welcome
just started that
and,
one. Sitting down here that.
You wouldn't have to give them the info now. just
Right,
they
so
have
they
it.
can start
They
thinking
can
about it for
start,
next
yeah.
year, yeah.
We'll
So,
touch on it briefly then. But
Okay.
Sure. So I have a series of questions for Rod mostly,
This is for
but
next
just
year.
about the
we're doing a
update.
revaluation this year, but certification is next year. That's where they look at all your assessment practices.
All right. Is the goal of the reassessment to bring all properties to market value?
Yes.
And when do you expect to begin?
Within the month, we'll start doing sales verification.
Okay.
Hopefully, this month's fine.
And when do you expect it to be completed?
I think our turnover date is by October 15th. For the end of this one.
Okay. And insurance certificate, bond?
Yeah, I mailed all that stuff to, they've got it here, I mailed all that to the DRA last week.
Okay.
Probably isn't a bond, right? That's-
There is no bond.
That's usually an optional
Right.
thing.
Yeah, there's no bond with their insurance certificate.
And personnel involved in the project?
It'll be me and Brent Levitt.
Okay.
You don't have Mike Martell anymore.
No, he said he didn't want to work anymore. He said he's gonna sell his house up here. He wanted to do work over years ago.
You are the supervisor in charge, of course?
Yes.
And my favorite question, how do you calibrate the canvas system?
How do I calibrate it?
Yeah.
By doing sales or, sales analysis.
And then modifying tables or
Modifying
anything.
tables
Yeah.
and checking our ratios.
New building laying down as a result.
Yeah, update on things.
And special use properties
I don't think we really have any here.
and utilities,
San Souci does those.
poles and conduits as well?
Yes.
And you will measure and list sales.
Yes,
And do you do the data entry?
most of it.
Of course,
Brent might do some on a rainy
Oh,
day, but
not the
mostly
town, not the
not the town, no. We do it.
you know, I know from looking at your work, visit history is important. It's what date, who was there, what they did, so. Let's see, and I believe we have a copy of the data collection manual. Does the town have a copy as well?
Yeah, there's one here in the office.
And neighborhood delineation maps, that's something you're obviously gonna work on this year
Yep.
as well. Let's see. So, part of what I do is I will take a sample of the sales that he visits and he measures, and I'll go out and visit them, basically just audit the work that he checked, make sure that everything he's got is right. What I'll do is I'll make a little report. It'll contain any errors if there are any. I'll first send a copy to him. He'll have a chance to respond to it. And then after that point, 30 days, I'll send a copy to the town, so you can have a look at it. That's basically, they call it a monitoring report. You'll see a copy of it eventually at some point. So. Let's see.
Postcards.
Yeah, and before, yeah, that's right. Before I would go out and visit any property or send a postcard out to the owner, asking them whether or not they'd be okay with a visit. If they aren't, they can either call or respond to the postcard, and then we will not go to that property. Posted properties in general, we don't visit either, even if they didn't respond or they didn't want someone to go. Let's see.
How do you handle postals? Pretty much
Posted?
posted properties.
Yeah, we don't. If we see somebody else, I'll ask them if we can, but if there's nobody around.
Do you send them letters to get in later though, when you do your callbacks?
Or we send out our original postcard saying if we don't hear from you, if your property is posted and we don't hear from you, we're gonna estimate it.
Oh,
You know, that they have to let us know and write ahead of time if they want us to go on, that's all.
You know, how many years you've been with us now?
Since 2011, I think was when I started.
And I think there's only been one issue, and that the sign fell off the car, right?
Yeah.
I
things
mean,
have been
I'm just
quite-
not aware of people coming forward. Are you aware of any? It seems to be a professional job that you and your staff have done.
Seems to be working.
Do you plan on doing any work remotely?
I do the analysis and stuff remotely, so I dial in, update the tables remotely and stuff.
And do you notify the public that you are doing updates on the website or?
On their website, you have it on there?
No,
No.
Okay.
No,
Again?
it is.
you might want to do that, something to think about, just
Yep.
that's fine, yeah.
Let's see. And before you do informal hearings, do you send out a letter?
Yeah, I'll send out a letter saying this is what your new value is and these are the dates that are scheduled appointment.
All right. And do you know the range of dates you'll be used for sales?
And I'll go back to April 1st, 2017, up and through the point doing my analysis.
Okay.
go beyond April a little bit.
Yeah, I usually put it at whatever's occurred.
Yep.
And the sales analysis will be available for us to review at some point.
Yes.
And you said you'll mail notices of new value to taxpayers. Do you have any idea when you're going to hold the hearings?
I'll suspect sometimes in August, late August, early September.
And you said the end date was 10/15.
I believe that's what the contract says.
And now, of course, you know you have to provide the use map by 30 days after the MS1.
Yeah.
Just explain the use map for the selectmen a little bit.
Sure. So, yeah, he fills it. Basically, he's going to write up a manual that describes all of the processes involved in the update, the staff that took part in each piece of it, their certification is another part of it, and a breakdown of how exactly they came to the values on pretty much everything. Whether it's the base rate for the homes or the base rate for the land, waterfront, that kind of thing. All of the methodology is put into the manual, which is something for us to review to make sure it meets all of the standards that we have. So basically, we've done the job correctly, and then we would send a response and that back to you. That's kind of how that goes.
I had a couple questions.
Sure.
Since the last time that this was done, has the legislature changed the process or fine-tuned anything?
There were some changes to the standards.
Anything that
Um,
is important to us?
The ASB is the one that makes the changes more, I
Okay.
think.
ASB is,
Assessing Standards Board, they
Okay.
changed some of the standards. That has more to do with certification though.
I realize that every 5 years there's changes, and I don't know if it affects assessing, but, you know, the second building on a property that came out a couple of years ago, and he was right on top of it, so.
Oh, there's one thing that changed, this was a few years back. You used to be able to deny, you used to not be able to deny entry to your house in order to appeal. Now that's changed, so you can still appeal even if you deny entry to your house. But during the appeal process, it may still, the assessor probably is gonna ask to get inside, so.
And the next thing is, do you foresee the current legislature, or do you see things changing in the future, or is it just fine tuning from year to year?
A lot of fine tuning going on.
I realize that's a tough question.
Yeah, there's been a lot of work on utilities, they're still fine tuning that, I think
Yes.
there's a bill out there now.
Right.
Um,
We've been involved in those
Oh, okay.
negotiations.
Yep.
Yep.
This is the guru, 11 and a half hours at a time.
Trying to think.
Okay.
Actual monitor, I don't think there's too much.
Obviously, computers have helped an awful lot, so.
Sure.
And the internet, so, thank you.
All right.
And you send all your field data cards back to the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Pass this test.
Maybe since we're here, I'll just touch on the certification, even though it's next year.
That'd be
Okay.
great.
And maybe just give the handout, so the town may want to work on the things, some of the items anyway.
This will be mostly what we do. Certification.
Awesome.
Yep.
So,
They must have changed the revalue here at one point then to.
yeah, they did, they moved it up, if I remember sure.
If you want, I can.
Sorry. Information here.
Karen.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll give this, you have one?
I can make copies if you
Or
want.
that maybe.
Piece of that.
Let's give that to the
That's
office.
Great.
and have
That's
it.
right. Just in case
It's not as
you're,
bad as that.
That's just some of the more important statutes that relate to assessing.
Awesome.
Some of them.
So even though this will happen next year, it's good to know that this is coming. Assessment review is an every 5-year item that we do in every town. According to the Assessing Standards Board, there's certain standards that are required. Some of it involves looking at your ratio statistics that will happen after the revaluation. They want the median ratio to be between 90 and 110, 100% being market value. They're looking at COD, or coefficient of dispersion, which is a measure of uniformity, and that's supposed to be less than 20.
What is ours currently?
I
Okay.
think you're
I didn't mean to
getting
get you
out of
cold, I was curious.
It's probably approaching 20, I would guess.
I would
don't
guess
know.
we're approaching 20 or
For some reason,
The way the market's
19.2 stands out, but
that.
Cool.
Where's your median at? That might be getting low too.
That's
Is it-
getting low too.
Is it down in the 80s?
Down in the 80s.
Yeah, it's pretty common for the market being what it is right now. The bigger part of the assessment review is assessing practices, so we look at things like access to public records, the annual list, which means your pickups or inventories. We do some field sampling on that. We look at current use files and what they're supposed to have in them as far as recorded applications, stewardship plans, current use values being rated according to the borrower decision, land use change tax recorded, and proper paperwork on that. We review the contracts, which we already would have done for the revaluation. And then we look at exemptions and credits. This is something the town may want to do. I don't know how often you do requalification of elderly exemptions.
Once every 5 years,
Once
basically.
every 5. So you could start that in 19, or you can wait till 20, but it could be a process. It might take some time.
Usually pretty much time, usually retirement.
Yep. Any other exemptions that you may or may not have, like blind, disabled, deaf? And your veterans
Well,
tax.
as I recall, we don't have a huge number that fall in that,
Okay.
those.
I think veterans is slightly
Veterans
over
are your-
100K.
Veterans
are your biggest one.
Veterans
I don't
is
think you
huge,
have
but,
any
but
others.
the elderly, blind, disabled is a fairly, very small
Yeah,
number,
that's
so,
small.
very manageable, yeah.
Yep. That one's kind of the most important one though, because you have your, you know, your income requirements that you need
Yes,
to meet. So,
right.
and that can change.
Right.
So,
Yeah, right, the veterans credit, it just is.
It's not much
it's-
show alive in
it's-
here.
right,
yeah,
right,
not much to do with the
Right.
veterans
Yeah.
really.
Right,
And also the religious, educational, charitables, you probably have a number of those. That you need
We
to
do.
Make sure they file their applications yearly. It's not a bad idea for the board to look at those if you don't already.
Well, both charitable and religious educational charitable, the Marist decision out of Effingham
yep.
and the Superior Court found for the town of Effingham,
Yep.
and the opinion from the Supreme Court was, you know, overturn every one of those things. It made it very clear that it's boilerplate about what is charitable, what is religious. And that affects us because of our churches, but we also have 6 camps in
Oh, you
town.
do, yeah.
And it's not an adversarial relationship, but
Are we all exempt then?
yes.
they are.
And what we do is we have a pilot program, payment in lieu of
Yeah.
taxes. It's, I think it's a positive situation.
Yeah. Then we have a data accuracy review, which is similar monitoring that Adam mentioned, but it's done for the purposes of the AR certification, visiting a number of properties. I think we do like 35 properties in that. Again, that won't be till next year.
Mhm.
Which I did my master's degree on years ago.
On what?
Program audit,
Oh.
research
Oh,
methodology.
yeah, yep.
The 3 towns that we did for my master's degree all had 45% errors, and the Attorney General for the state of New Hampshire went after them for triple damages. But that was decades ago.
Yeah.
I'm sure that won't happen.
No.
Better.
Proportionality is more of the statistical review, median ratio of the different strata or property types. PRD is price-related differential, that's a measure of proportionality. Has to do with high-end properties versus low-end properties, and that statistic can show that. If it's over 103 or less than 98. And then USPAP, we already talked about that a little bit, about that. USPAP stands for Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, which the state adopted, unlike most surrounding states. So we have a fairly strict standard that we ask assessors to adhere to when they report on their revaluations. So that's just an overview of what will happen again until next year, but it's good to be aware of it all. If town may want to start working on some of the elderly reviews or something at some point. Or exemptions, I mean, not credits.
And Rob, this is all stuff you're very familiar with.
Yeah, I've done
Right.
dozens of times, so.
Right.
Yeah, he's doing a few other towns this year,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
So, thank goodness for that.
Yeah, I don't think you'll have any major problems with any of your assumptions or any guess.
But we won't really be doing any of this until next summer, next summer of 20, and then into the fall and into the following year, actually.
But that all builds on the reval we're doing this year.
Right, yeah,
So, Yep.
Usually they're done in the same year,
Yeah.
most towns.
Ideally, they're done in the same year.
I know they did ask to move the rebound, because you know, it's been 5 years, you gotta do,
Yeah,
they didn't
yeah.
ask to move certification up.
Mhm.
Yeah, you could move certification up, but can't go the other way.
Who would want to do that?
Well, fair taxation is assessment, and it's the linchpin of government.
Okay.
Anything we can do better?
I wish
Find out.
I wish I had made your stats, I didn't bring that, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
I'm
but
sure
I
you're
think
on
they were
track.
getting out of line, you know, because it's just been 5 years and the market has changed. so
Yeah,
much.
and some
That's-
boards of selectmen are concerned when they see that statistics getting down to low 80s, but that's just the market right now. It's just so incredible.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for making an appearance, gentlemen. Drive safe.
You know that.
Thank you, Rod, for your,
Oh, okay.
thank you, Rod, for
Yeah,
your
you're
efforts. They're appreciated.
You're welcome, thank you.
So third is done. They're not all done in the same year.
New houses, they've been done over the last 5 years.
That's a
Right.
positive
For
report,
over
Mr.
5
Chairman.
years,
Yep.
There's a section each year.
Absolutely. All right. So, come on down, gentlemen.
Hi, guys.
Good morning, how are you?
Step right up
Good
here.
morning, hi.
Yep.
Lloyd Wood.
Hi, Stuart Anderson.
Stuart, good to see you again.
Yes, how are you?
Yep.
Lloyd Wood.
And Chief Shigure gonna join us?
How far did you guys have to travel?
I'm up in Woodstock, and it was actually just telling Phil, we were having this little blizzard right there for some odd reason, and
Sir, it's a good place for it.
yeah, absolutely. But I drove like 5
Well,
minutes
well,
south and blue skies.
There you go, yeah. Well, it was interesting at my house, which is not far from here. The sun was shining this morning and it was snowing. You know,
Right.
Just a little flurry, but, so
Yeah.
it's just,
Dandruff at my
yeah,
house.
that sort of thing happens.
We were in a bubble this year up there, certainly. Got a lot of ice storm. I still have 3 feet of snow in my yard.
Yeah, yeah.
It just seemed,
Yeah.
everything right around me.
And a lot of
Morning,
ice.
Chief.
Hi, Chief.
Yes, correct. I can give you copies of this. I know some of these emails are cheaper for you too. Good, thank you for taking your time this morning.
Okay, cool.
I just want to give you an update and talk through where we're at and what our
Yeah.
current thinking is. We thought we would quickly summarize and run through this kind of draft report. I mean, there's still obviously, a bunch of things in here we need to elaborate on, but it'll give you a sense of how things are shaping up, and then we'll maybe come back and then focus a little more on kind of conceptually the building we're talking about, and then how that fits into the various different site options.
Okay.
So yeah, if we take just the first few minutes to run through the first page as the preface, we'll probably expand a little bit on that just to define better what the scope of this whole study was, just so that then this becomes a good standalone document for then a layperson to pick up and read, so it isn't predicated on the fact that they understand kind of some of the discussions that have gone before. The contents page will give you a good sense of the outline as to how we broke it down. Task 1 is effectively demand needs spatial analysis, so just understanding what it is we're trying to achieve. Task 2 focused a lot more on the existing facility, conditions of that, potential for reuse. And then Task 3 you really undertook, starting to examine the different options and pros and cons of each. And then what's not in here right now is all the appendix stuff you see at the bottom. We'll tackle that into the report as time goes on. So I said the first part under 1.1 really just gives a little bit of background information, current status of Tuffnboro's population, potential for growth, does or does that affect the level of policing required. I think we could kind of philosophically approach that different ways. But I think it's maybe then more
that's a little bit of background. 1.2 on the next page, and so stop me if you have questions as you go or if I'm running through this too quickly. Kind of really starts to itemize what the existing police programs are. And I think what we need to add in here too, in discussion with the chief a little bit too, is what potential police programs may be, or other requirements or regulations that may then impact the level of staffing requirements. Because that all runs into effectively the building program, which you start to see then under 1.3. There's essentially 2 pages there that start to itemize the different spatial requirements that we'd be looking at within a facility. And kind of broken that down into public spaces, administrative spaces, where it be police staffing spaces, processing spaces, utility spaces, evidence and property, and we arrive at a total 4,500 square feet, give or take. It's where we arrive at programmatically what we think we're going to need within the building to make all the programs work and logistically make it all happen. So that kind of becomes then the benchmark that we start to work with to develop just how big the building is, how big the footprint may be. Section 2, and I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, really was just our first pass take on walking through the existing building, understanding what condition it's in, the various components. We go through kind of structure, interior, electrical systems, plumbing systems. It's basically a summary of, I said, what the existing building is, the condition it's in, which helps us just understand how viable it may be to utilize that space for future development. So then, we then cover on to 2.2, then starts to highlight what really are a lot of the shortcomings of the existing facility, as this to, where we certainly do not meet anywhere close to what the programmatic requirements need to be. So it's really a bullet itemized listing of considerations that we certainly need to give in the new facility, but also as shortfalls in the current facility that really highlights how, in all honesty, drastically undersized the existing facility is for what the programmatic needs suggest. Graphically, what I think just that following page under 2.3 highlights quickly, as we can see on here, you have the existing town hall facility, the existing police station, and then that shaded area is approximately that 4,500 square feet that we were talking about that we'll need to make a single-story structure work for any future development. So that becomes logistically part of the challenges we then face as to how do we make that work on this existing site. And so I think we'll continue to run through the report, but then come back and talk specifically on some of the different sites if that works. 2.4 really just starts to highlight what the existing building is. It's a quick take on the spaces that are currently available. And I said that just kind of gives us a good understanding. 2.5, we start to outline what would have to happen to that existing facility in order to start to make it usable, whether it is for the police department or another use, as we'll talk about throughout this meeting, I believe. But it starts to look at what things at kind of bare minimum under existing recommendations start to should be addressed to give you a good viable building that's going to perform well for you. Then what we effectively run into under section 3 is where we would then start to talk a little bit more about development concepts, and ultimately we'll tag to that estimates of probable costs that are going to go along with each of those options. And I should point out here, I guess, we have option 1 we're looking at right now. We have 3 options. We have, in some respects, I want to talk this through with you, dismissed an option that would expand the existing building as it stands, because we spent a bit of time logistically looking at how that would work, what the impact would then be to the parking that's associated to this, to the cemetery and behind, and it's programmatically really tough to make that logistically work. So the 3 options that we're kind of then boiling it down to are Option 1 would be a new facility on this location, however, utilizing part of the adjacent garden spaces to put a new building directly across the parking lot effectively. One of the big pluses under all three of these options is it would allow them the town office facilities to potentially start to utilize what is the police department right now. So you'd gain some additional space for expansion of the town office facilities if needed very easily. That would be easy space ready for you to capture. Option 2 looks at what we're calling the Dearborn site. I think everyone's familiar with that location down the road a little bit. And then option 3 is again also looking at the fire station, or directly across the parking lot from the fire station that kind of currently has that, and there's a little bit of a community park in that location right now.
We're half thinking that maybe we should put the existing building option back into the process so that in reading the report, you can better understand the conclusion that we came to, why that the existing station isn't feasible. At the moment, it's inferred. We recommend that it's not used, but anybody reading the report might say, well, where's the proof? So we're thinking maybe it makes sense to put a...
So as, if I recall correctly, as you looked at the existing building and the requirement for space and looked at, say, building onto the existing building into something that works, you came to the conclusion that it's not an effective way to arrive at a new facility, as opposed to building near the existing building, say right where part of the garden is. And so there's a reason why just building an addition on the existing facility doesn't make sense.
Right.
And maybe you can, and I think as part of the report, it makes sense to spell it out. And maybe you can just address that a little bit as we're sitting here as to what, given the existing size of the space and the space requirement for future needs, why does it not make sense to just build an addition onto what we have?
I think that's going to be an important answer, because when we had an earlier committee, just as a rough, without looking at all the logistics of it and everything, that was quote unquote thought to be the cheapest in some ways. But I really didn't, I think it was only a building without thinking of the logistics. I mean, if you look at the Wolfboro Library right now, I went by it yesterday, where they're adding on to it, it's closed, and we can't close down the whole town hall. And along with everything else that goes on, because it's not just a matter of, okay, there's space enough to add on, it's, you gotta have equipment, material, parking, and the cost of moving and...
Right, I mean, one of the big downsides is, I mean, if you're a year under construction, then you need to come up with a temporary police department location for a year. And the very last page, and I think you're right, adding in, so I'm kind of skipping over a bit, we started to identify criteria, because we're trying to, ultimately we want to evaluate each of the options and rate them in some fashion.
Sure.
So by adding that in as option 1, we'll effectively then end up with probably 4 options for consideration. We'll see that we in our heads working through it kind of already know that that's going to score very low on a lot of these criteria, because there are things such as logistical issues, adequate parking, potential for expansion. But yes, to actually document that and demonstrate it, I think would be important to everyone in the community, just to say that. I mean, it became really apparent to us, but...
And it's something that, as the chief had indicated, for many, many years has been thought of as one of the things that we need to look at is taking what we have and just making it bigger. And so if it isn't going to make sense, and that's certainly what, in all of your experience with all the different stuff you do, you can pick up cues that said, to you, say, this is a no-brainer.
Right.
But to us, helping us walk through it is helpful.
Well, because I think one of the big realizations is, even if you were to utilize the existing location, in reality, and any contractor's probably gonna tell you this, they're gonna bring that building back to the foundation. Because really what's there just is gonna get, effectively, it'll be the tail wagging the dog effectively, in that there'll just be so much we can't utilize in there that actually becomes cost prohibitive to start working around that. And that they'll be in and out quicker and faster to say, knock it down, let us go in there and make it happen, especially with all the criteria that we're trying to put in here for a 21st century police department. A lot of what's there is inadequate. The systems that are there don't really work. The level of protection, the level of quality of the build just is inadequate really for what we should be building a police department to today.
To give you a sense, the green area is the existing. And I think this argument, you could salvage the foundation and the floor structure, but really the rest of it's not going to suit any purposes. This is an attempt to fit in as much as we can without taking over the site. Chief had mentioned that we can't really go much further that way because it's already into the graveyard.
That's right.
So the cutoff is kind of like leaving a little bit of clearance. That's the setup on the graveyard site for the plots. So it forces us to still cut into the adjacent site to get the adequate parking. And this, the pink is the addition. It's still 1,000 feet under the, approximately 1,000 square feet under the program needs. So, I mean, there's obviously, you're losing part of this site. You're 1,000 square feet under the program needs. You've not made any significant construction savings because you're only using a minimal part of that. You've lost the police station. You're disrupting the whole town, use of the whole town hall, because this site's going to be very difficult to maintain public access to the town hall. It's just, one element after another really does not suggest this is the route to go. But as we said, we didn't put it in the rating criteria, and clearly people are going to want to see those elements.
It will be helpful because of our history. And again, we have what we have, and it's difficult for us to, it's kind of like you're living in your house and you want to expand your house, okay? Somebody comes in and says, knock it down and go fresh. It's like, this is a perfectly good house. What do you mean knock it down?
Right.
But you guys know from dealing with design and the approach to construction and the cost of time and materials, just from working with this stuff all the time, it's easy for you to calibrate in your head some of this stuff that if we can put something down on paper would be very helpful to all of us to. And the other benefit is the more of this stuff we have down on paper, I mean, somebody can say, well, I think this is full of bunk. Why are they using this rate or this or this or this? And we can then go through and have the conversation and whether a rate you use for particular activity is right, wrong, or otherwise. If it's stated, then you can easily say, well, okay, so change it by $15 and see what that does.
Right.
It gives you a sense of the sensitivity of the whole thing to these changes, and it helps further the conversation in our education in the process.
No, I agree, absolutely. So I think, yes, we will.
Excuse me. I'd like to add something. I'm going to cut right to the quick.
Sure.
I have copies of 4 police station projects, and not one of them has ever said it's credible first choice to add on to where we are. Okay?
Yep.
I'm a native here. I'm in my 71st year, so I've been around for a while. I am not aware of a member of the public, other than a member of the Hateful Eight, wouldn't agree with anything.
Okay.
I think that's the way we ought to go.
Okay.
The chief has been consistent, he's been articulate, he's been professional. The last committee he was on, what a leader, he did a great job. I'd have no problem. I understand we have to technically cover that base, but I'd have no problem making a motion right now that we stop spending any resources or money on that facility being expanded. That's Lloyd Wood talking. The second thing is, I'm in my third term as selectman, and when I talk privately, I tell people about, we have a piece of land, it's been perk tested. As far as I'm concerned, I want a police station that's within sight of the school, the library, and the rec area.
Yep.
And I want the bad guys and the pedophiles to know that.
Right.
And I'm a little right of Genghis Khan on that. And I think spending any time on any other projects other than, a page of why it doesn't make sense is all of the town's resources, all of our energies need to be putting the appropriate building on the Dearborn property. Thank you for listening.
But that's not what we ordered. Okay, so, as part of the process, I think that we need to continue and complete the work on the three alternatives. And it's, you're much closer to a lot of this than most people in town, right? And so one of the things that helps by going through and doing this study on several alternatives is it becomes educational for all of us. It either reinforces what we already believe, or it might give us an aha moment that what we thought was the way to go doesn't make sense. So,
And what I think what you'll actually find then within each of the three options is presented right now, and I think to your point, Warren, that's hopefully beneficial, the plan for the building we've developed is actually readily adaptable, the same plan for all three sites. So other than examining how it may fit on the site, I think the analysis of the building, then the cost estimating that's going to go into the building isn't being done multiple times for different locations. It's going to be that same baseline information that's then applied, kind of tested on three different locations.
So you
to
might
then
have,
see
might have a site work that's different
Exactly.
from one to another, but
Exactly.
in terms of the actual, what the
Building
building
itself.
itself costs.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the various sites will obviously make the decision much clearer. Some have pluses and minuses, there's limitations, you're losing more and more of the garden if you ever want to do an expansion. Each one will have criteria that will be more or less attractive to the town.
So just to quickly run through the three options as we have them, and we went, effectively, under 3.3 we talked about what we're going to use as criteria for rating, and we'll come back to that because that's also the last page, and looking for some guidance from you on that. I'm sorry.
I had two ideas on things that you might want to
Okay.
add on that list of somehow impact on delivery of services, i.e. both law enforcement, but also if it's, I guess that goes to the part of the expansion in site, how that would impact delivery of services for the whole town. And also the master plan, the town's master plan kind of talked about having a central, the last master plan that I'm aware of anyways, had talked about delivery of services and the need. Just a quick review, mention how this works, fits in.
No, that's a good point. Thank you.
How
So-
each option fits
Right.
within the master plan. I think all three would fit within the idea of the master plan, having it kind of the last I recall was, kind of trying to have our services within this kind of a area, central area of the town, central located to the town.
I'd like to expand on master plan that talks about population and demographics. For example, we have 6 camps. And let's say there's 1,000 people that go in and out of each camp during the summer. That's 2 trips. we're also talking service vehicles and accidents. And what I have done with my background in public administration is I assign what is the census of that camp, how many people literally go in, including campers and grandmothers, and give it a 0.8 number.
Okay.
One of the camps happens to be on an island.
Okay.
So, or whatever. You start adding that, and then the transient population and the summer population, and we're no longer a town of 3,000.
Right, right.
And the fact of the matter is, whether it's someone driving to one of the camps in town, or one of our citizens driving, an accident is an accident when the
Has to
fire
be addressed.
show
Yep.
up, or like that. Also, those camps are unique in the type of services they provide. Handicap camps and whatever.
Yeah.
So, again, we have a couple people, well, the demographics are such, well, they really aren't.
Right.
And live on a couple of our streets at 5:30, 6:30 in the morning in their racetracks. So,
Right. But just to run through the criteria we're looking at is level of site disturbance, effectively, right, what's the impact on any given sites? The level of disturbance to other existing facilities, so again, that's probably where like so Dearborn would score very highly because it's not a site in current use, there's no reworking of some other activity that's going on. Infrastructure and utility availability, it's a good item to be cognizant of. I think they're all going to score very similarly. They're all going to need wells, they're all going to need septic systems. So I mean, I don't think that's going to be a criteria that's necessarily going to show one drastically different than the other.
right.
Adequate parking available, I think as you know, not all of the sites as we have it are quite apples to apples in terms of potential for parking. So I think that is something to consider. Public accessibility, and by that we mean just if it was this location, let's say, then it's tied in with an existing public access point. So people are here, there's good connectivity. Maybe the Dearborn might, as a standalone thing, you know, you could argue that I think both ways, so that's good, bad, or indifferent. I think you could look at that different ways. Community awareness and visibility, again, I think a lot of them will be very similar. They're all going to be right on the main stretch here. It's going to be very central, very visible. Community preference / political issues, that may be one we need to lean on you a little bit for some insight into how we would rate that, whether you feel there is any landmines, so to speak, that we should be rating any better than others. Short-term logistics, again, with all three options with the exception of here being a new facility means they continue to operate in their existing facility until the new is ready. I mean, we know that this one then, expanding this, if it was a viable option, would score terrible in that criteria because you basically need to come up with a temporary police department for the better part of a year. Expansion potential, I mean, I know you're doing this with a thought process that you never have to touch this building again for 30, 40 years, but you know, somebody will be sitting here 30, 40 years from now having this conversation, so.
Yes.
Long-term maintenance, again, with them all, the majority of them being new construction, again, I don't really see there being a significant rating difference in those. And then obviously estimate of probable costs is going to be a big factor. One of the things Phil and I were talking through was whether or not we should be weighting these criteria differently than others, or whether they're all of equal weighting. Because I think what we're going to do at the very end then is tabulate all this so that we can try and score then effectively each of these options to see if there's a clear one standing head and shoulders above the other. So I think, you know, again, I'm not looking for an answer on that today, but maybe something that, with some guidance from you, whether you feel certain of these criteria should be weighted more than others, would be helpful for us. Under 3.4, we'll see a conceptual building plan, and I will come back and we'll visit that in a few minutes and get a larger version to look at. Effectively then we start to go through each of the sites, and this becomes a little bit repetitive, but we're going to do this for each of the sites, whereby we'll talk about site characteristics, get a little sense of topography, existing infrastructure and current use, and then tag to that we'll start to define a summary of the scope of works associated with each of these locations. again, with it being by and large the same building on each site, the construction scope of works are gonna be very similar, but this is helpful for us and our team as we start to look at costs, that we're making sure we're tagging in appropriate allowances for, take an argument such as target hardening, so ballistic protection of certain aspects, maybe the entryway to the building. The administrative area may want a level of ballistic bulletproofing protection to that. That's a big ticket item in terms of construction and what those materials cost. So again, we just want to make sure that we start to adequately discuss that with, if you recall, we have Cobb Hill Construction on our team who are going to be running the cost estimates. They're a good outfit that run cost estimating for a lot of different projects. So that's a little bit repetitive, as I said. Well, under 3.4, which is page 22, just to quickly look at, this is the existing location, so to speak, this existing site. So I'm on page 22. So just to give you a sense of, obviously we are here, this is the existing building right here, the existing police department. We're proposing potentially an option to take over that. So we keep the same curb cut that's out in the street right now. We can expand upon the parking that's there, but effectively right across a parking lot would be the new police facility. That would still leave good access to the back for anyone going to the cemetery location. And also gives an opportunity for us to get, what we want to try and achieve is this distinction between the public side of the police department and the private side of the police department. There's certain logistics we want to be cognizant of in terms of detainees coming in, juveniles coming in.
Which is pretty standard, right?
Absolutely, yes. That's just a benchmark we look to achieve in any police facility. So that's roughly how that site shakes out. We do plan to spend a little more time just developing these so that and graphically present them a little
Just
better too. Yes.
to talk about what you've conceptualized there.
Yep.
Because of the need for accessible parking for the public access on the police side,
Yep.
there's gonna be accessible parking over there with van. We're gonna lose a couple spaces between the access road to the police station to the backside and the accessible van parking walkway.
Those are the spaces with
Yeah,
access on
yeah.
one side.
I guess the point is, if you ever look out here sometimes when we have meetings and it's full, I guess that's something to think about, is that we're actually gonna be losing probably about 3 spaces probably, right?
Oh, when there's a function on it here.
From what we have presently, we'd lose probably 1 for the accessible access and 1 or 2 for the entrance road over to the,
Right, there isn't, yeah, because where that road is, there's at least 2, if not 3 spaces
Yes.
there. I mean, we're gaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the
on
back
the, on the
side.
back side of the police station.
And we could conceivably make that more on the backside if we thought the policing need required more. And that little.
No, I wasn't so much
Right.
thinking about the policing side of it as so much as the town hall side,
Right.
losing those 3.
Right, so you're down 3, but up 7, yeah.
You'll also lose 3 to 4 parking spaces during winter. Where do you put the
Snowbanks.
snow?
So,
Yep,
We found that in the fire station. The snowbanks, even though they've been pushed back, they're still 8 feet out onto the tar.
right.
it's just something to
Be cognizant of.
cognizant of as we discuss that site. We're losing what existing three spots essentially, but we're gaining them on the back side of the police department, but
But that would really be for our officer and staff parking.
it's a private entrance kind of, and that's, even if people used it, it'd be a,
Right, because they would have
Yeah,
to go back around the front of the building.
they have to go around the whole way, but anyway, that's just something I noticed looking at that. There's a,
Now, you depicted as the garage as well as the building, right? Is that what this is over here, or is this a
It's just a fenced in area.
fence?
Yeah, it's like a.
The pound.
it's for large evidence,
Yeah.
it's like a impound,
Okay.
just chain link.
Just aside, one question we were just discussing when we were waiting outside. If this option went forward and this became a function incorporated into the town hall, is it feasible that like that space could be the compound, the large evidence?
It's
Just-
possible, but I don't know that, it's possible.
Because it's obviously they're garages at the moment, so to upgrade them, to turn them into space, that could be usable within the town hall is further expense and their limited headroom in there. It's just obviously on this site, that becomes more of a bit of an eyesore.
Well, that's what I was thinking aesthetically, that is
Yeah.
another issue, but anyway.
Exactly.
Yep.
Then, kind of skipping on to page 24, you can see how the same building, it's exactly the same footprint of building, would lay out conceptually on the Dearborn site. While there is a reasonable bit of land there, we're trying to maximize and keep it on that kind of higher elevation before we really get into where the slope and the grade start to drop off. So you can see we're not quite achieving, well, we're achieving the same level of officer parking, the impounds and the rear of the building. We maybe only have, we're only kind of showing 3 or 4 potential parking spaces for public, for visitors. So that, you know, again, with snowbanks, does that start to get a little tight? You know, we might like to try and see if we can get more parking for public parking on here. Although given this is now dedicated police function,
Right.
there's no intermixing of town functions, so I guess it's the reality of, you know, what's, you know, how much parking do we want to provide for public effectively at the police department?
The town has limited resources, and I think part of the design of the building and its location, you need to be able to take a snowplow and go across garage doors,
Yes, right,
okay? And you need to get the snow 25 feet away so
Yeah.
that halfway through the winter, it's not like it is here,
Right.
encroaching on the parking.
yeah,
The other thing is as much as I like green grass, the less you have to mow and maintain. And there's, it can be aesthetically, but it needs to be really functional.
right,
I take the point of view is I want my police officers to be police officers, not shoveling
Not
and
landscapers,
sanding
right.
and stuff like that.
no, good point, very good point.
I think the 3, is given what we normally have for activity, would be adequate along with the parking in the back. So
Right.
that it becomes more, as I said, problematic here when we have like a meeting here, some selectmen's meetings already, you know, when something
Yeah.
is popular, we sometimes have people parking out along the roads as it exists, so that's why losing 3 spaces here could be
Could be an issue.
an issue. But
Well, and the other huge plus of relocating is then all of this parking is now freed up for
Right.
just town office. There's
Right.
no,
Yes,
there's
sir.
no officer parking, there's no cruisers parked here. So, I mean, you gain out considerably what you have here.
we gain a couple spaces between our administrative assistant and, yeah, at least 1 and maybe the cruiser sometimes. So we gain probably 2 spaces by having us off the site.
To your point, Lodge, I think this layout is not ideal in terms of ease of
preliminary.
plowing. You know, there would be a little bit more work in the back of the site there, but again,
Well, plowing and caretaking is similar to the aesthetics of an impound yard. It
absolutely.
certainly
Exactly.
makes more sense to not have it next to your town hall where everyone's coming in 3 times a year to pay
Right.
taxes and
Yeah.
register cars.
And then skipping forward to page 28, you can effectively see how that, again, that same footprint would sit in a location directly opposite the fire department. We've taken the approach on this one, though, and sort of the print now maybe isn't particularly clear, that they would not be utilizing the same access point as the fire department,
Excellent.
just because of conflicting
Well-
vehicular movement.
We can't change, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can't change the curb cut or the width of the road. So we slightly adjusted the road, but it is kind of a little bit dependent on having a one-way system. Kind of entering here and then coming out through the fire station. Because the road width would be, is gonna be limited and you probably couldn't have 2 cars back.
The fire station, as late as yesterday, for our training, was absolutely filled. First of all, we had to park out back to let the neighboring towns that come in to park. There were airboats that were coming in. Our equipment needs to pull out, and this fire station, because of certain restraints, doesn't open on the road. that apparatus has to pull all the way out, and it's double bays, some of it, some has to pull out another utility vehicle behind it, which is fine. You cannot have the public sharing recreation or police department, that area.
Yeah, that's dedicated to
You know,
fire.
I mean, I've seen it happen, and it happened yesterday. Someone pulls in and is turning around, and the lady never saw the fire truck pulling out. And I mean, there was no accident, there was no near accident, but no. If the police station is on that property, it needs to be a separate entrance. The other thing is, there are still residual people in town who think that the fire department usurped an 80-acre rec area. And they don't say too much publicly, but I hear it all the time. And that's why that is, yes, it's the number 2 option to Dearborn. But
That's, I think, that's to the point of the local political,
yes,
Right,
you know,
that would hit some resistance.
yeah. Because they had assigned Central Park, and
Yep.
there's some that felt it was a recreational facility purchased for that purpose.
those 8 individuals, I have reviewed every single meeting, every single plan, every single whatever. All but 3 have said, well, boy, you proved it to me, but it still is a place for rec area.
Right.
But, and just on that point, you had mentioned that there'd already been investigation on whether additional curb cut could be
Well,
created.
there is another curb cut, but it's over here on the other
Right.
side, the fire station not built.
Right.
That's what we have, but my understanding is what the state has allowed us.
Which is obviously not any help for this site.
Not any help
So
for
I
this
think-
site or for recreation or any other purpose, but yeah.
But I think if it is in fact the case that you can't increase this curb cut, you might be able to put passing pull-outs on this road, but I think that'll be a very negative impact on the rating of this site. Is that my understanding is we can't get a larger curb cut, so we can't really increase the road significantly to make it a two-way entrance exit for the police station.
In other words, what you're saying is essentially we have to go, in order to make this kind of a program work without getting a permission for wider curb cut, you have to be able to go through
I
this.
think if we can't change the curb cut, then we're either looking at having passing pull-offs or utilizing a one-way route.
Now, that road is a state road, but it's prescription. The landowners own to the center of the road. It's a very unique highway.
But the state controls the curb cuts.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what.
Right, so you still need coordination with DOT at some level.
Correct.
Yes, that's right. Right.
And there's some other, I mean, obviously this site is limited, more limited than the other two as far as potential growth. And really, to make, if you wanted to use this property and wanted to have an equivalent potential for of the other 2 sites, and you're really looking at maybe going further up the hill, which will have significant cost implications.
And the political ramification is 54 years ago, the public safety building was tabled, was gonna go where the current library is. And that there were 3 third rail issues in town, and for whatever reason, putting public safety together has been voted down every
It's
time.
just one of those ones. Yep.
Yeah, we have 3 third rail issues in town, and one is mandatory recycling, and it will never pass. It's a unique character for this town, and it's ingrained.
The only potential saving grace on that location, and we're not even practically sure if practically it would be a good option, is the building could be marginally smaller if consideration was given to sharing the training facility within the fire department. Because right now we have a training room built into the police department program that, while on paper that sounds like a good idea, you know, the logistics of we're doing a training today, we're hauling stuff back and forth across the parking lot. You know, is it really practically something that would be of benefit, given it would probably make a very minimal difference in the actual construction costs of the building. To eradicate that space.
I had it on my list to talk about. I support the idea of a training room
Yeah,
that also can be used as a command post, horrible when we have a murder case or something like that. Or, let's say there's a large situation, a raid going on in the area. You can have, the people meet there early in the morning and go out.
yeah,
That room, it's like what they have in the library, the community room,
Mhm.
they have at the fire station, and they could be bigger.
right.
So,
Well, it was very beneficial. We did in the town of Thornton's police department. Yeah, they capitalized on that and used part of that meeting room plus associated bathrooms as their EOC, their Emergency Operations Center,
Yes.
which actually opened up homeland funding and different
Yes.
funding sources too. So to target that and say this is dedicated to our Emergency Operations Center, should we have one, may open up other potential grant funding for you.
you'll see the stuff out there. Our EOC center is right here.
Right.
It's been used a couple of times in microbursts.
Okay.
And you're absolutely right, you have your finger on the pulse. Because we have a dedicated area, it will open up grant
Right.
proposals.
So then, I said the last page will where we'll rate the different options and hopefully come to some, criteria that would then show certain ones are more favorable than others. At this point too, I think, Phil will walk you through the building plan as we kind of have it right now. He spent a little more time on developing I got a larger one here, that might be easier to see.
Yeah.
Trying to read the little tags in the report.
Yeah.
Yeah, what does that say?
That's right.
And you can keep these copies, and certainly we'd like to, since we're only doing the one plan, make it as close to perfect as we can get. And then we'll start looking at modeling elevations and 3D characteristics. At the moment, it's just a two-dimensional plan.
And it's one floor, correct?
Correct. And that discussion I had with the chief, arguably, if you provide all the services that the public need on the ground floor level, you can get away from an elevator, you can go to a two-floor facility, but there's logistics and for injured policemen. So the question kind of raised is, well, we could potentially make the existing location work on a two-story, but what you'd have to put upstairs on the second story would almost probably drive it into requiring an elevator, because we can't get enough on the ground floor to even satisfy that. So obviously, main entrance, admin, the public space, they can access a bathroom, they can access an interview room, which can also be accessed from the inside of the main building, so the public don't necessarily have to come into the working area of the police station. Clearly, if they want to come to meet with the chief or the assistant supervisor. And then you have a changing room, locker rooms, a shared locker room with a changing area and shower room, separated for privacy, obviously, a bathroom and a fitness area. The chiefs, the duty officer, the chiefs, and a conference room off this end. Juvenile space, which is closer to, and again, locations of some of these spaces can be further amended. A juvenile area, which is within an area of permanent oversight. Custodial communications room. A room for weapon cleaning, miscellaneous storage, fingerprints, armory storage. Opposite the evidence, drug storage. And the storage that needs to be refrigerated, a break room, roll call room, the squad room, and then obviously the sally port and all the facilities that would be required for any potential holding of the potential, what's the right, I don't know what the right word is for the suspects or whatever, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, people,
I don't
arrestees.
want to arrest.
To Sallyport.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this gives the option of either utilizing it as two Sally ports or one large evidence, one Sally port, but either way, you could fit a vehicle in either. So those could be kind of interchangeable.
I support that 100%. I'd almost go with the 2 Sally ports so you could have a second cruiser undercover ready to go. The other thing is, doesn't happen every year, but what happens if a car needs to be processed because it's in a major crime or a fatal accident? You want to secure it as evidence. Some of the smaller police stations in the state haven't thought of that. The other thing is our county didn't think ahead. You have a bad guy and you want the person to be transported. The paddy wagons don't fit in their garages.
Oh, okay.
You need to think.
Height-wise.
That's
Yeah.
right. I have another thought, and that is, you have a bad guy in a cruiser,
Mhm.
and you're vulnerable when you're transporting him out of the cruiser, right? To be processed.
Correct. I mean, I think
So that section of the building needs to be able to be secured so they don't run into another part of the building.
There is,
right.
there's.
That's what that would be. This would be a secure lockdown, key code only access door, so that anyone who did break free in here
Can't get out
can
of the
they can get into maybe the processing room, but yes, they can get out of that area.
Right.
I mean, I think protocol is such that when they would actually be within the Sally port or directly adjacent to it, you would secure your weapon, so that again,
Yes.
someone who challenges you in that environment.
Right, we talked about between the two spots, not having a wall per se, but it could even be
Like a,
a fencing.
yes, yeah. So if you were utilizing that as large evidence, they didn't have free reign to run over
And
there or
not
something.
just large evidence, but your equipment too, like shovels or rakes or brooms.
Right, and it could be weaponized.
That could be weaponized if somebody were to grab them.
That's also what I was going to bring up.
Whereas some of the other designs we've had in the past, we had like a separate screen, like a tool room kind
Right.
of setup.
Yep.
We're actually giving like half the garage area, if you will. We're having a garage area and we're having a Sally port area
Right.
to do that. With the juvenile room there, how big is that? Could that, I mean, I guess my thought is, this is why I bring it up. We have an interview room off the lobby, which would be great if you're taking like a citizen thing, but if you're talking, like, I would like to, I guess I need to be clear, the juvenile room would also be, I would envision that as being more of a more formal interview room. You don't want a bunch of people sitting out in the lobby and necessarily overhearing what's going on. I worked in an apartment where we had an interview room that was adjacent to the lobby, and you had to turn the radio up in there so they couldn't hear what was being said by their cohorts that might also be involved, or to get this.
The other thing is, don't you
But
really need
the
more
juvenile thing could be kind of a combination interview.
If you pick up 2 juveniles or multiple people, you really need to divide them up in separate rooms, sight and sound separate, right?
I think we've got that covered, because you've
We've
got,
got rooms over in the
you've got-
back.
you could take and use the conference room and have the several, if they're juveniles and they have to be watched unsecured, somebody could, you can only be secured by personnel, you could seat them in there. If we had several, say we had an underage party or something, you could put several in that area, if you will. I think, I just want to make sure that juvenile, it's not just juvenile, it's also a place where you could record interviews with people that can't be heard from the lobby necessarily if somebody else were sitting out there, that's all. Or somehow that, yeah. I also saw that interview room that's sitting there as an ability of someone, if they're fleeing, to be able to secure themselves from, if somebody chased them into the lobby, they could secure themselves in there.
That was the next question I was going to ask.
As a kind of a.
Right.
We talked about that, kind of that they could get themselves, secure themselves, we still have access to it. And the
Yes.
person that maybe, if they were needed to separate themselves from somebody in the lobby, they could do that. Obviously, they can't get to that unless there's somebody in the building anyways, so,
Correct.
but it still gives them the ability.
Is the admin where is a potential dispatch center?
Yes, that'd be where the administrative assistant would be. Would be a, I would assume, a consulate there.
Right. And these rooms would have extra masonry and secure, so someone couldn't break through.
Right, what we've done in the past, another is, for example, this line here would all be ballistic protection.
Yes.
So if someone was out here, I mean, front entrances tend to be the target points.
Yes.
So that, right, if someone even was in the lobby with a small firearm, well, again, it depends the level of ballistic protection you
Yes.
want to go to, but even with a firearm.
You're not talking 50 cal or
Well,
armor piercing.
I mean,
or
I
anything
think
like
we've
that.
done level 3 in the past,
Yeah.
which is pretty aggressive. I mean, you've got to be in there with something pretty heavy duty to be going through that.
Yeah.
But these would all be ballistic doors, so that, right, they can be discharging a handgun in here and going nowhere.
And there'd be some type of cement work out front so someone couldn't crash it with a vehicle,
Bollards,
right?
yeah.
Yes.
bollards, yeah.
Yep. But yeah, we've done that in the past with just, it's a very thin product actually. It just goes on a stud frame that gives that ballistic protection. Or you can do it with masonry too, but it's actually a little more cost effective to do it with that ballistic type paneling.
I do like the idea of the bump out on the building, on the fire department. As people said, why don't you just put a box there? Well, you need a reasonable amount of aesthetics, so.
Correct, right.
The front of the building, it's,
And then we can, I mean, we haven't got to that point with modeling it, but we can run this roof long, so it's like a little covered entry to it. I mean,
Well, the
we'll
other
develop
thing
that
is
as we go.
That when somebody's coming up to the building, the public coming up, if you've got the area bumped down in the front, it's a visual cue that that's where,
That's the entry.
that's right. People are used to, if it's just flat face, it's like, okay, so the door over here, is it over here, or is it, yeah.
And one of the challenges for a building of this size, we want to simplify the layout, keep the cost down, but then you're driven into a fairly large roof if you want to simplify the roof. In scale, it's not going to really work so much with these buildings. Separating it at another location, it'll probably be less of an impact, but if it were to go on the adjacent site here, I think we'd want to look at ways to break up the scale of the building a bit more.
and where is the utilities room for?
MEP.
Okay. If it can be done, I like what they did at the fire station. It's secure. Sometimes you want the vendor to be able to come in.
You can
Yeah.
as a locked door.
I mean, we could certainly create a lobby here, because the officers will be coming in mostly here, so we could create a lobby and put the door in up there. So you'd have a
It has worked well at the fire station where the rear door, they have the key to come in, but not access to the building. What are the width of the hallways?
5.
5 feet, so it's fully.
Is that reasonable or should they be wider?
Well, that is 5 feet's the minimum to make it fully ADA accessible.
Yep.
So then we have wheelchair turning radius everywhere. So if any administrator or officer for any reason was wheelchair bound, then we maintain that throughout the building. I don't know, going wider would probably be excessive. I don't see a need for that, given how many people will actually at any given time really be in here. These corridors are for the most part going to be officers and administrator only.
And the other thing is, I know a couple of police departments that, I want to say, underbuilt them, but just put sheetrock and over a period of time, 2 officers passing with gun belts
Beat up on it.
and whatever, so.
Yeah, I think
5 feet is a fair space. I mean, typical corridors are 4.5 to get easily past people.
Because everybody's going to be using the corridor multiple times an hour.
Right.
so.
I mean, in things like in this area, we would typically be using impact-resistant materials.
Yes.
So yeah, again, anyone just standing there kicking the wall is not going to be breaking through a piece of sheetrock. One of the things I was going to point out that's really nice about this plan is, for example, on the Dearborn site, the plan's actually mirrored,
You can flip it, yeah.
but it puts the chief's office and the super's office up here, so they have really great visibility
What's
of
coming and going.
what's coming and going from the site.
I marched to a different drummer. I like the idea of the chief office down the hallway. And the reason for that is you want the public issues to be handled by as many of the personnel as possible. If the chief, my experience has been is that the chief is right next door, guess who they stop and see before they...
True.
I guess, so I think whoever designed this has used good judgment.
Right. Nice job. But yeah, as Phil said, I think it's making sure we don't overbuild, but equally we don't try to tighten this up just to try and bring the price point down, that it's then becomes something in 10 years, you're like, geez, we need an addition on this. And we're trying to make sure this sets you for ideally the next 25, 30 years that you have a building, you minimally maintain, and you're good.
The intention for an addition, it could either be coming out this way and forming an L, or going off, continuing in this direction. I don't think any of the sites really would be feasible to increase the length of the building. Some are more adequate than others to come off and create an L, so that's going to have impact as well on the rating, which site is more.
I'd have no problem being able to expand in two directions, so the future chief and the future selectman will.
But I think all of the sites will have difficulty going in both directions without impacting other parts of the site development, like the impound.
One of the things I've learned from the fire station is, and it was cut out, is the conference room to have a secure exit that goes right out. Because you want to bring in a set of tables, a display or something like that. Now we're going through multiple doors and bending corners and all that.
I guess the
And
question
how
is
often does that
security.
happen, though? Is that, I mean, what you rate is you rate the convenience as opposed to the security. You know, every outside entrance you put into a facility like that is another,
Security, and also it's a breach in the envelope of the
Right.
building. Every door adds a little bit of, obviously doors aren't as well insulated and as
Right.
airtight as
Yep.
even the best doors aren't.
Yep.
And at some point you have to, and I think the expense of the doors, I mean, they're not huge, but each one, I understand the thought process there, I just don't know how often and how that would go.
And we would try to create a reasonable amount of storage directly serving that.
Yes, yes.
And further to that, with the 5-foot corridors, you don't necessarily have to come through the main entrance. You could come in the officer's entrance, so it does simplify it a little bit. But point taken, if there was a thought process that there's going to be a lot of changing of furniture or for the various conference uses, then we could certainly easily add a door to the exterior. It's just a question of security over convenience, I think.
The other thing for the conference room is there could be a coffee alcove, something for refreshments. That could also be used for the staff.
we've got a break room.
Well,
Do we anticipate the conference room within the police facility having a public role in any shape or form, or this is, I guess we saw that more
I
as
would
a training
not-
room?
I would not, because again, we're in a secure facility.
Right.
It
And
adds
it's inside the
complexity. It can be
secure.
done, it's within the secure envelope,
Yeah.
otherwise you have to start.
Right.
Right.
So
I-
we have a training room at the fire station that is used for outside activities other than just firefighter training. But you have a different situation there than you do in a police facility, in my mind.
Right, because you could have someone being detained
Right.
while there's something wants to happen, which
Right.
the two don't, I mean,
Right.
while they're secure, it's,
right.
Right.
which is maybe too, where
Privacy issue.
privacy issues too, if they're juveniles.
Mhm.
I shared with him the high priority is that any time, day or night, there could be a bad guy in there.
Absolutely.
And the less mums and daughters and kids
Right.
in there, the better. So I
And,
agree with
and by a conference room, it's really not, I don't want to give the flavor that it's like the size of the, it's not It's meant for like if we have a major event, that we can sit like six,
Not a whole lot bigger than this room.
right, so we have a table like this to sit around with like 6 or 8 people and discuss a major crime maybe, or, you know, if we're gonna do a search warrant, I mean, we'd have some place where a number of people could sit and
Right.
Yes.
kind of
mean, yeah,
discuss.
you
It's
could
not,
have
it's
a-
not a,
Well, and
It's
it's
not a
nice
me-
that if you have some sort of an activity where you have neighboring police
Right.
departments
That's what I'm
involved,
getting at,
then
is-
then
Yes.
you've got a space where you can do it, rather than saying, we're gonna go in this side of the garage and we'll set a table up out there, so, yeah.
Well, and that's too where relocating to another site, if there was a community need for that type of meeting space, then maybe that's a consideration to repurpose the existing police department to a little meeting room.
We're building an addition on our library this
All
year
right.
that will have a large
Community room.
activity room.
Right, which would be more
associated with it.
akin to
Right.
that public access
Right.
point. Right.
And we do have other spaces in town that are available
Mhm.
for those kinds of things, so,
we're looking at something that's gonna seat the department plus maybe a few other people from outside, so it's not like a huge,
It's also a place for him to work on his budget, lay it all out.
Big table like this?
And then go home and it's not disturbed.
Right, you come back in the morning.
There's plenty of uses he can find for
Oh, I'm
it.
sure.
And it's kind of separate from the rest of the operation, so. Janitorial,
Yeah,
Custodial
custodial.
storage, so it's that little
Yeah.
space right here.
okay. And bathroom for the eventual dispatch center or EOC or,
this one right there.
One right
There's a
there.
staff
One
bathroom
here.
near the, close to the admin, then there's a staff bathroom and also locker room.
Right by the locker room area.
And then we have one in the back. if
There's
someone's
one for the
Detained needs to use the
detainees.
facility.
And at a real push, there's another, another one out.
yeah.
The ADA compliant one that sits out front.
I think this one works too, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
these are both ADA.
Right. That's what this is too.
Mhm.
Because you considerably could have a wheelchair bound detainee.
Yep.
So what's helpful for us at this point is obviously some feedback in terms of the process we're going through, and then you know the particulars like you're raising now. I mean, I think ultimately for us to arrive at a recommendation, it is, you know, we're going to boil back to those criteria that we're going to use to evaluate it.
Right.
You know, I think, you know, we will develop a little further. You know, we'll start to present exterior how it's going to look so that, you know, it's presentable to the public, and we'll hopefully start to win people over. But yeah, I think the kind of meat of best option is going to come out of those criteria.
Right.
And clearly, the rating process, we want it to look as unbiased as possible, so that we've come to this and we didn't have a favorite site. You don't necessarily, you may have a favorite site, but you want to let everybody make the decision. So we'll try to make the criteria as objective as possible.
Good. You all have done a lot of work.
Well, it's a start. We certainly need to spend a little more time on it too, but and generally with that, do you have a target date in mind you want us to try and wrap up by? I know it was a little just out there in terms of, there was no benchmark.
Well, it was. We knew when we contracted with you that we were not going to be presenting it at town meeting in
Right.
2019. And certainly our thinking is that we would like to be ready to go for town meeting next year, which is
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
1.5 months out. The earlier we get through this process, the better in terms of how we work through things here in town. I mean, obviously, if we're looking at moving forward at town meeting, the further in advance of town meeting we have the results of the effort available and can begin conversations in various venues in town, the more beneficial that is.
Right.
So it's.
I mean, if we tentatively,
I guess my sense is, let's not put this on the back burner.
no,
Okay, let's keep moving it forward, but I don't want to establish an artificial deadline date that then squeezes your timetable to the point where some stuff doesn't get
No,
processed.
but I think we work better under a timetable too, because it's often
Yeah.
uneasy to.
Okay?
So, I mean, if we tentatively said, if we had a kind of penultimate draft, we're starting to tie in costs
Yep.
by, let's say, the end of April, and then look to wrap it up by the end of May, does that general timing
I
seem?
think that's.
I was thinking June, but.
All right, sorry,
Yeah.
May, June?
June, the final
I'm
project?
thinking,
Um,
end of April at this point, we're
It's 30 days.
away, yeah.
Right,
So,
but I think it'll be helpful once we start to see the preliminary costs, that'll may
Right.
change our conversations a little bit, or may not, so I think,
yep,
if we could kind of pencil in to do this again, call it a month from now, to sit and kind of give an update and
Sure.
where we're at, that would
Yep.
be helpful, and then we can take that feedback and try to wrap that into a final product as best we
Yep.
can.
What is the square area of this ballpark figure?
All right,
The total is
5,000.
gross footprint is 4,800, which is the actual, including exterior walls.
Wasn't the schematic for the library 49?
I have no idea.
So it's functional. The other thing is, any early estimates on cost per square foot?
I'm gonna shoot ourselves in the foot, but.
I think, look, rather than having you guys put something out there that could be way off from.
Right, I think it'd be better-
We're going through a process here. I think we're better served by following the process through and seeing where it leads us. Rather than saying, well, we think it's so much a square foot.
And
Now
come up with some-
people start getting something in their head about, here's how much a project's gonna cost, that may be totally out of whack with what we end up with.
By throwing a square foot number at it is really an early days method. The builder that we work with will run through a more detailed process and by division. I think it would be a much more accurate method.
Yep.
And it's not something that we have to do all that often, so we prefer to leave it to the people who do it very often.
so we don't get ourselves in trouble. Yeah.
I have two other questions.
Yes.
What should we have as, what would you folks recommend, what does the chief recommend as far as fire systems?
Well, that was a thing in there about
Mm.
fire suppression. There was a,
It's not actually required by building code on this type of building,
right,
so it's not a code requirement.
Is it required over 10,000 square feet municipal buildings?
Yeah, but we're like half of that. The downside I may introduce is cisterns, because we're gonna be up a well. And depending on the level of pressure, maybe a pump as well. But, is it a safer building? Yes.
The reason I ask that is, there's a secondary benefit. There's a water source across the street that's open. It's a pond,
Right.
but a pond is not 24/7, 365.
Could they tie that into cisterns then?
A cistern is, we have 5 in town. The other thing is that it's instant fire protection for the entire area. It's fire
having
protection
a cistern.
for all of these buildings. That's why I asked the question,
Right,
because
depending on the site,
there's
yeah.
secondary benefits.
If it was-
I'm not aware, is there a police station that's been built recently that has pressurized suppression water systems? Are you aware of one? I'm not aware of that.
I mean, municipal settings is different when you're on city water.
And the
city
other,
water is one thing.
the other thing is, does it ever make sense to have refueling stations somewhere on site, chief? On down the road.
I guess my thought is, you're not far from the pump here.
Yeah,
So-
It's obvious.
no. I mean, yes and no, I don't,
I would have to think twice of it, but I'm going through my mental checklist and ask these questions.
I mean, some places do it, but I would be hesitant to do that,
I agree with you.
given what we have, how much we use, where we're at, and what would probably be involved in putting a new one in
Environmental issue.
environmentally and stuff. I think we're better off sticking with what we got.
I agree with you.
Oh, yeah.
Well, then we have to introduce proximity to the building.
Yeah, that's right, it has to be out, you have to
Reading
show
that
that on it.
accordingly,
Yeah.
right, because,
And access to it, I think we're introducing a whole lot of things we don't need to.
what we did tag in here is potential for solar on the roof. Depending exactly on the site and the exposure, but it's a good potential if it's something you wanted to consider. And we can probably line item that as a separate cost, just so you get a sense on that.
I guess my sense is, yeah, if you wanna throw an adder on for solar, but it's,
Spin the meter backwards and hopefully have no utility bill.
occasionally,
I think
When
it
the
can't
sun's-
hurt to,
when the sun's shining strong enough, yeah,
I think it can't hurt to show that as an option.
right.
I think, but the part that would drive that discussion though too is kind of an estimate of what it's gonna cost to run the building. You know, we're looking at a high potential cost for electricity, then the offset probably is faster, because they're never gonna pay us more than we put in, right?
Right.
So the most you'll see is a $0 bill, so depending on what the cost of the facility is and I'm all in favor of it, but we gotta show the payoff to it.
Right.
Ideally, it would be sized just to cover your
Right, right.
usage.
Right.
I know the plan isn't short right now, but we will account for, full standby generator system.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
because we're going to get into evidence storage, just to be kept refrigerated
Yep.
and
And
other
just
aspects of that.
critical infrastructure anyways.
Right,
Well, again, but that's another one that, certainly the most recent project we did, their federal grant paid for a $100,000 generator, because it was tied into their EOC.
Mhm.
There's no town policy about concerning the mechanical HVAC system, heating, ventilation systems. You don't have a preference for fuel types or system types?
we don't have
Or
a,
lead,
a,
I don't think we have anything for a
no,
policy.
no.
Okay.
We do have a guinea pig, and the fire station is 5 years old. Really went heavy, the engineers did, all the state of the art. And maybe they should have kept it a little more simple in retrospect, but Adam is a straight shooter and can explain that.
Yeah, my sense is we want to do something that's energy efficient as an envelope, as well as in heating and cooling. We're going to use high efficiency.
Right. In the long term, the better the building is built, the more energy efficient the building is, the system becomes less important.
Right, exactly.
Because you can change it and it just helps, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, just in the last 10 years, these systems that do 3 different things.
Amazing.
And it's a state of the art.
Yep. Okay, do we have anything else for today? Have we answered your questions?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think if you could spend a little time just reviewing those criteria,
Yep.
and if you feel there are additional criteria we should be adding in,
Mhm.
and then but you feel any of those should be weighted heavier than others. We were thinking some of them probably should be, but again, certainly take your guidance on that.
Yep.
And then it's general, if you have a chance to go through it and
Sure.
provide another general commentary, the feedback is helpful.
Any further refinements on the
The thing
plan?
I thought of is perhaps, I think we talked about this, having a closet in this office as opposed to using a locker, if you will.
Right.
Because there's 6 lockers. There's nothing for the administrative person, you know, they come in with their jackets, whatever. I don't know, I just thought of,
Yeah.
Yes. Public buildings are like private houses. Housewives tell me you never have enough.
so I just think if the chief's office had a closet, maybe I shift one of these over,
Right,
a section of this over.
and we certainly, we don't know exactly the full accoutrement of equipment that's going in here, but we could steal some space.
Still some space for a closet there or something, that frees up some, at least 1 or 2, you know, because you've got just basically the officers.
Right.
Well, that would include these 2, having
Right.
6, but that would be something to consider, is whether or not there should be a closet in the chief's office and a closet for the, someplace for them to, for the administrative assistant to hang their coat. They don't need a locker maybe, but they need like a small. Yeah.
What have we missed?
I think we covered the basics. I wanted just opportunity to present to you the process we're going through and the direction we're going in right now.
Yes, this layout. So if you
Comfortable with that,
wanna-
we'll continue.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for
process.
being
I can
able
give you
to.
some.
No, thank you.
There's a couple of.
The feedback is important.
With respect to the
Okay.
weighting of the criteria.
I like that
Yes.
layout. Don't get me wrong.
This is not the first project you've done where you've taken this approach. So is there a typical weighting that you use?
Yeah, why don't we take a first pass
Yes,
at reading it and send it
right.
to you, and then you can provide any commentary on that.
Perfect, perfect, yep.
And then should we just coordinate with Karen on a follow-up meeting time?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, that would be great.
Yep, I'll do. Excellent. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you making the trip down today.
Everyone got a copy of the report right here?
Yeah.
Is this yours?
Yeah, do-
Yeah, we'll run that.
do we have a copy for Chip?
I don't have a copy of the second thing that you were looking at. I only
Extra
have,
copy.
I only have this.
Yeah, I did.
Huh?
Oh,
I
wait,
only have that.
I wrote some notes on that one.
All right, okay.
Here's an extra copy.
All right, terrific. Make sure that
Yeah.
that goes in this folder. So we'll all try and take a look at it. And if you're thinking about a month, our first meeting in May is the 6th of May. That's actually 5 weeks from today.
Yeah, we can pencil that in and then confirm as we get closer.
Yep, that makes sense.
Sounds good.
So why don't we at least tentatively put that on the,
For the
Calendar.
similar-ish time, 9:30, 9:45-ish,
Yeah.
probably.
yep,
We'll confirm as we get closer.
Makes it easier for you to travel.
yep.
Yeah,
There won't be snow, hopefully.
my kids get on the bus at 6:40, so. I'm up and going early, it's not a big deal.
Yep.
Well,
All right.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thanks very much.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Nice job, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay.
No, I do like that.
No, but certainly,
Yeah,
I mean, it's, you get a little bit of,
Yeah.
can't see it from our house, as they say.
Thank
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Start with me? I'll start with me, right?
Yep.
Anything
Unless you
else?
have anything else
I
for us?
forgot to mention at the last meeting, I've signed up for the drug take back, April 27th.
Okay,
So that'll be the Saturday, 10 to 2 at the recycling center, so.
You work with Clay on that, so.
Yeah. So I've just got the DEA set the date and I've signed up for it, so I'll work with Clay on that.
great. Thank you, Chief.
Have a good day, sir.
You too.
Nice job,
Okay.
wasn't it, Mr. Chairman? Nice job.
They did a terrific job.
It was not their first rodeo.
No. I like the process they're going through and see where it takes us. All right, let's go to the signature file. So.
That's okay.
This is, first is a letter of, this is a feedback letter to the school district about individual kids that are children that
That's the roster.
may not be residents
Yep.
of the town of Tuftonville, right?
And my contact verifies.
Okay. Next, I have a warrant for yield tax for 16-1-4 in the amount of $2,490.22.
Move we sign it.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Chip approves it too, I can hear him. ESP.
Yeah, really.
Between coughs.
All right. Next, we got a letter to the trustees of the trust funds requesting a reimbursement for money spent for library design.
So moved.
Second.
What's the amount?
This is $3,327.52. So, yep.
So moved.
All right. And second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We're then moving right along.
All right. Now I got a gravel tax levy in the amount of $50.40 for 16-2-19.
So moved.
And I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. And we have a intent to cut for PID 16-2-9. So, and this is, there was one last year for this parcel, and they didn't cut anything. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so.
And was this one properly signed, or is that another one?
Well,
Okay.
yeah, it's properly signed,
Okay.
so.
Wasn't there one where the owner didn't sign?
I have one that I know I have to have Linda sign,
Okay.
I know,
Okay,
that was the report.
So moved.
That was the report.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? And a yield tax levy for 16-2-21, the amount of $254.34.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, next we have a contract for conversion of the tax maps.
Is this your note, Karen?
On the top?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the article that was approved at town meeting. And this is,
And it's a little bit less, right?
yeah, yep. $10,660, is that right?
No, that amount with those
Oh,
options added,
Plus, yes.
it's on my note, I think it's 15,000 something. 15,
Oh,
9,
yes, right, so it's, everything but 750.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's within the warrant
It is
article.
within the article, yep.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Karen.
Second,
You're welcome.
all those in
Aye.
favor?
Thank you, Joe. Joe needs his exercise.
Yep, that's good. And finally, we have a application for veterans credit for 50-3-2. And Karen, it says the applicant meets all criteria for the standard veterans exemption.
I'll move. Accept.
All right, second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And we have made it through the signature file.
Fine job, Annie.
Next up is a Selectmen's update. Lloyd? What's up?
Can I ask a member of the Conservation Commission to work on the Mayor's Award?
Yes, I think that's,
Okay.
that's very appropriate. Yep.
Nothing new on the master plan, I know it's nudging along, so.
Yep.
There's two things that I'm working on. First of all is northern boundaries, the grant proposal.
Now, you went to a meeting on that.
Yes. Were you on the board when a couple of years ago we did about building a building at the
Transfer station.
transfer station?
Yeah.
Well, there's a new wrinkle. Infrastructure.
Mhm.
And this is my thought. We now have a highway study and culvert study and whatnot. What if I write a grant that way? Not for this this year, because it has to be done by May, but the understanding is for next year. And I had a concern. In May is when the proposals have to be in.
Yep.
But they do give us a year to go to town meeting and say, town meeting, will you accept the grant and will you match it 50%? This might help our roads and be judicious. I would like permission to continue on that.
I think, why not? Let's,
Okay, the other is PGA.
okay.
3 of us went down, including Clay, to Wakefield. The crushed glass. It was bad weather. It was covered with snow. It's not frozen. I think that Clay supports the idea, and a private citizen went with us. Let's try it. There's 2 things that I want to get in writing. First of all, will they load a truck that goes down there to get it? And he thinks, yes, they will, but I asked him to please get permission, and it needs to be an agreement between us. Number 2 is, I'm still trying to, and I'll do it again at the TAC meeting next Wednesday, is I want to find out anyone who thinks it's a bad idea or has had a bad experience. For example, Wolfboro said that when the truck dumps it and spills it, they got to make sure they rake it off the lawn because the landowner sees.
Glass, yeah.
Okay. The other thing is I want to find someone that, hey, we tried it and it came up through the ground or whatever. The other thing is, they've told me, is that if private contractors in town want to get it, they'll load the trucks. But I want to get this in writing, and wouldn't that be nice if, for example, you're putting a new garage in, and you can save $5,000 on fill. And I'm also thinking maybe we could save something at the library that would save the town money. But I want to make sure it's someone else's. I want to make sure everything's lined up straightforward. So, any advice for me, or?
No, I'd say it sounds like a reasonable approach.
And if you know of someone that has anything positive or negative, give me their phone number so I can learn. And again, this isn't Lloyd Wood's idea. I want to make sure it's someone. It's a community effort. So. When we fixed this fence last year that the state damaged, Yes.
There is some sort of a form we can fill out with the state. I don't know if that's something that the Transportation Advisory Committee might have some input in.
Okay, I think it's $1,000. I know that, I thought that the state forwarded that form, but let me follow up on it, okay?
Yeah. I mean, I know we didn't put out big money to get it done, but whatever we can get back.
It's interesting, this year, last year, it was at the height of a snowstorm going by, and it wasn't safe for me to stop for the guy that was doing it. This year, he was down at the other end, and I stopped by, introduced myself, I said, please, don't wipe out our new fence, and he says, thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Good. Let's see, what do I have going on? Tomorrow afternoon is the monthly meeting of the Agricultural Commission. Today, I believe we're taking delivery of the shed that's going to be sited out here at the edge of the garden, will be used to store tools and equipment. The composting demonstration area is being moved forward in the garden where it's more accessible, more visible. Garden plots are available. I'm told that some people have signed up for some already.
Oh, yes.
Out here.
Hasn't that been a good program?
I'm sorry?
That's been an excellent
Yeah.
program. I go by and I see a grandfather with his grandson and granddaughter. It's something out of Saturday Evening Post
Oh,
card.
absolutely. And we've got some activity going on with food composting demonstration projects this year, trying to get something going with the school. And also to get the camps engaged in the conversation as well. Purchasing a food composting piece of apparatus that supposedly has some great performance benefits. So,
It's been a good program.
other than that, Thursday is planning board, and we have a subdivision site plan coming in for review on Thursday. I think that's
I watched the YouTube of the sand pit thing. It sounds like the planning board listened
well.
and was appropriate. So
You know-
my compliments to them.
One of the things that's hard for people to get their hands around with respect to these sand pits that we're dealing with now is these are existing pits that have been used for a long, long time, and this is part of the process to bring them into compliance with current state regulation. And that in every case, once the planning board approves the site plan, its use is more restricted than it has been in the past. I understand when people get a letter in the mail that somebody's applying for a gravel pit next door to my property, you can be concerned about it. Other than you have to step back and say, recognize that this pit has been there for many, many years, and that the likelihood that the use on that is going to change substantially is not great.
You go ahead, you're always welcome.
So,
You know, a pit operator in the neighboring town said, you know, the state has now passed this responsibility on to the towns. He says, but it's the easiest thing to solve. He says, my material and my equipment are already there. It's not like I'm having to, fill in someplace, build a house or whatever. And I thought that was a refreshing way of looking at it.
yeah, absolutely. So that's all I have for update. Let's go to correspondence. And we have correspondence from the Portsmouth Assistant City Attorney on a couple of issues relative to school funding. The Conval School District has brought a lawsuit to try and force the state basically to send them money to take the excess SWIP that's now staying with the
How many initials?
with the districts, and
over coffee, I made sure I
Yeah.
have our local representatives pay
Yeah.
attention to
Right.
this, so it affects their taxes too.
So a little copy of the state-owned red listed bridges report and some correspondence relative to our 2 bridges. Karen, we didn't get, with respect to the bridges that we had on the Bridge 8 list, that's different than the red listed bridges.
That's what they
right?
explained to me,
Okay.
yeah.
So we can put in for Bridge 8 before it becomes red listed.
Well, look what we did, was our good fortune construction piper got done early
Yep,
on Sodom Road. However, I learned something from that. You know there's a foot of tar on that bridge. You're supposed to stop tarring and whatever,
Right.
and I've asked a couple of companies, how important is that to correct that situation? And it's not like it's weighting the bridge down, but that's a ton of tar that's
right.
on it, so.
Right.
I learned something every one of these projects.
So, and we have our advertisement for lifeguards and water safety instructors here. And we're going to be advertising in the Granite State News and the Carroll County Independent. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Update on the cell phone coverage maps from the project that.
What'd you think of that?
Well, I don't think it's truly reflective of the actual coverage. There seems to be question as to whether the data gathering instruments were working
And some of the
properly.
And some of the information that's is not available is proprietary.
Yep,
So it's-
well, that's right. So.
I know it's a project that Jeff Hayes is working on.
All right, and another piece on the Conval's lawsuit. So fortunately, she's following it, and Chip is going to be in touch with that as well. Keep our eye on the ball.
You know, when I was first selectman, we paid, I think, $1,000 a year to support that lobbyist group.
Yep.
And when the lady retired,
Yep.
didn't
So I
spend the
think it's
money. But I would invest
for $2.5 million in impact on us. I think continuing to stay on top of it is important.
And that was one of the questions I'll ask Chip is, do we want to invest?
Well,
something?
and
I have an open
there's
mind.
there's been some conversation back and forth in the emails about hiring a lobbyist. And so if it gets to that point, I think certainly, from my perspective, it's important to be involved and pitch in our share on that and do what we can to protect the town's interests as well. All right, I think we've made it through everything.
Did either one of you want to attend Lakes Region, or maybe you don't know yet too, but Lakes Region's annual meeting? Lakes Region Planning, I should say.
When is that?
June
24th. It should be in the, I think I wrote a note on that green.
Yeah, it's, and I didn't go back to it because we'd already,
Yeah, I forgot to ask you the part, I think one was about nominations, but then the second
Yes.
half was
June
about if you want to
24th
go.
is a Monday, correct?
yep.
And what time?
I'm not sure.
Well, it's evening.
Yes, evening. It's,
I would like to go.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
gone in the past
Yeah.
and,
and I would as well. So
Okay.
let me put it on my calendar so that
okay, what is that called?
Lakes
Lakes
Region
Region.
Planning annual meeting.
yep.
in the last few years, hasn't Lakes Region Planning really been a good partner for us?
Yep, absolutely. All right. Do we have any other business for today's meeting?
We need to do a press release for our new public rec director, just so it's a matter of record.
I think that Gina was working on something.
Okay.
So, yeah.
This is going to be a wonderful relationship. He set the tone, didn't he, with this April Fools?
Yeah, that's right.
Just for the record, I thanked her personally, but, you know, both Diane and Karen during the budget system meetings and town meeting did yeoman's work, so compliment to both.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know when I go in and ask a question, I get a straight answer, so, or they go find it, so thank you to both of them.
Thank you.
All right, any other business? I'll
Joe.
entertain a motion to
So
adjourn. Second? All right. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.